Crafty friends, and welcome back to the channel. I have a ribbon obsession on top of my paper obsession. So I tend to go to the dollar store. In this case, I actually went to the Dollar Tree and I bought all of this ribbon. Why? It is what it is, but here we go. So I wanted to tackle two projects at once today. I wanted to use up some of my ribbon. This isn't actually ribbon, it's a fabric scrap, so I'm just going to throw that aside. I wanted to tackle two projects. So earlier this week, I cut up a couple of master boards for like just Christmas papers. I just kind of dug into my stash and tried to use up some little odds and ends. And I thought maybe today I would use up not only this, but also throw in some ribbon. I like to add ribbon to journal spots and things, but I don't always break out my sewing machine. So I'm going to show you two different ways that I put ribbon and fabric on these. And the first way is probably the easiest way, which is with glue. So I'm going to clear my desk and I will organize myself, and I'll be right back. Before I dig into this, I did want to show you how I organize my ribbon. These are just like plastic shoe boxes from the dollar store, these little boxes here. And I'm lucky enough to have a Cricut, but I know you can buy these little like cardboard pieces online. I just used 110-pound cardstock and I just cut them on my Cricut. And the best trick that I have found is, rather than using pins in your organization, which are very pokey, and I can't tell you how many times I've stabbed myself reaching into this little bin, but use just bobby pins. And they don't damage the ribbon at all. So, and you don't stick yourself, so win-win. And basically, I wrap almost all of my ribbon. There's some pieces in here you can see that I haven't organized yet, and it's a hot mess in here. But yeah, those are my bobby pins. And I find these are a better option and a cheaper option than using pins. And as I said, I don't poke myself, so I like that. But this is just, it's all of my trim, and there's a little bit of lace in here. Like, it's just, this bin fell off my desk the other day and the ribbons went everywhere. So you're kind of getting the very messy version. And I try to organize them by color. This one, I only had a little bit of silver trim, so I just grouped them together. And yeah, I even saved this ribbon. It was from a set of sheets that I bought from Winners, and I thought maybe I could dye it black, because you know, you don't want the lettering on that. And some of it is wired ribbon. It's just whatever I had went in this little bin. You can even see there's tulle in here. I should probably put that elsewhere because it takes up a little bit too much space. But yeah, and then I like the way these sit, and you can kind of squish them. I mean, some of these are very chunky and some are less so. But basically, you can store a lot in this. A lot more than if you just leave it on your ribbon spools, in my opinion. And clearly I have a ridiculous amount of ribbon. And this is just my neutral bin. So I have kind of one that's more reds and pinks and oranges. And then I have another one that is blues and greens. And there's even a little basket that I have that's full with some of my thrifted lace trims. I will grab that and I will show you that as well. And I organize those ones differently. I bought some paint sticks online and I just wrapped them around this. My plan is eventually to stain these so that they look really old. But for now, this is where we are. So yeah. So my plan today is to use some of these goodies because, as you can see, I have way too much for one person. So let's pick out a couple of things to embellish. And I think I'm going to start with some of my little offcuts because looking in this bin, it's actually quite overwhelming. So I'm going to just pull out some of my remnants. That's probably good enough. We'll start here. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a decision as to which ones are going to be journaling spots, which ones are going to be maybe a bookmark. Bookmarks are a great way to use ribbon. And which ones I'm going to sew, which ones I'm going to glue. So I'm just going to kind of go through all of this and I'll do a quick sort and I will be right back. Okay, so I've done a little bit of sorting and I want to show you kind of what I'm going for. These are repurposed clothing tags. So, I mean, if you're doing tags, obviously you can include the ribbon that way, but you can also include ribbon this way. So you can do like the topper, but also do something down the side, which is kind of what I did here. So my plan is to figure out where I want to put things. And as you can see, I just used glue for this. And the kind of glue that I tend to use is a silicone-based glue. So the Beacon 3-in-1 is really good. I've also used Fabri-Tac. Sorry, I'm grabbing. Yeah, Fabric Fusion, which is also basically like a silicone-based kind of glue. And for junk journal purposes, I like this one. It dries really quick. And one of the ways you can tell that a glue is silicone-based is by the safety symbol. It's one of the quickest ways. So if you're going to find a glue and you want it to be fabric-based, I don't see any sort of indication on this one, but these ones are like a silicone acetone based glue, and what that means is they dry extremely fast. You can see on this one it says instant grab fast dry glue, and they are not kidding. So if you're looking to be able to reposition things, this is not the glue for you. So I am going to, this bottle isn't opened actually, I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to pick a couple of these. I kind of like this silver. It's kind of pretty. Yeah. And it's kind of stringy, so just be mindful of that. And a little bit of glue goes a long way. You don't need to go crazy with this. So that's just a very little string of glue, as you can see. And then, yeah, just stick it down. And I like to hold it just for a minute, but honestly, it's got such a good grip it really does not take long to dry. Just be prepared for the strings and the bits of glue that are going to get stuck to your hand. So that's essentially one of the ways to do it. So I'm going to go through and just add a little bit of pizzazz to some of these. Cute. It's actually really good for rickrack. It's also good for this, like pom-pom trim. So you can use this silicone-based glue basically for all of your crafty ribbon purposes. And I've also used this to glue fabric to my journal covers. So it's quite good. If you do not have like an acetone based glue in your stash, I highly recommend it because it's wonderful. And because it dries really quickly, I don't find it tends to warp the paper as bad as if you're using like other glue. I have also used Bearly Art glue and art glitter glue for this, and they do work, but I'm very impatient and I like things to dry right away, and that's pretty much what this glue does. So I'm going to trim this little piece off. And we're going to use this little bit somewhere else. Cute, cute. So these Franken papers or masterboards are something I love to sit and create. And I basically just use like copy paper as the backer because I've used cardstock before, and if you want to run it through your sewing machine, it can really run amok with your sewing machine. So some of these I'll probably sew, and others I likely won't. Like the ones I'm doing right now, I probably won't bother sewing. Mostly because the volume of the ribbon, especially in this case, with this like chunky ribbon, is going to be a bit of a nightmare to sew through. So you can essentially just glue things down without a whole lot of hassle. That's cute. I'm getting low on this glue, so I may have to open the other one. Yeah, I think I'm going to open the other one. When it gets to this, I just store it upside down. And I mean, they get pretty they get pretty stringy. I already opened this one. Okay. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you like including sewing elements in your journal, or like fabric elements or ribbon. I'd love to hear your thoughts because, as I said, I've got so much. It's really quite ridiculous. But every time I go to the thrift store, I find little bags of, you know, fabric and odds and ends, and I have to have it. So, okay. So I kind of feel like maybe I will break out my sewing machine. And I won't do this part on camera because my sewing machine sits right here. And so you'll only really see the top of my sewing machine. But I'll let these dry and I will go and do a quick bit of sewing on some of the rest of them. Something else I've learned the hard way is to be careful about the gauge needle you use if you're sewing to paper. If you can find a gauge needle that's meant for overlocking or denim, that's going to be a better choice than just like an all-purpose needle, because in some of these cases, like you've got layers of paper that are 2 and 3 layers thick, and my old sewing machine was just like a Walmart machine that I bought, and I was trying to do paper sewing with it as well as fabric sewing. I recently started quilting, and it was no go. So I switched. I got a better machine. I got like a Singer 4452 heavy duty machine, and I've been experimenting a little bit, and so far what I found is the thicker the needle, the better the stitches are when you're doing it in paper. That being said, I am not a professional, so if any of you sew paper regularly and you have any sort of tips or tricks, please let me know. I'm new to this and I love sewing, so I want to keep doing it, but I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on, do you glue and sew? Do you only sew? I want to hear from all of the experienced sewists out there. I will go and do my little bit of sewing and I'll be right back. All finished. While I was sewing, I grabbed a couple of other things from my stash as well. They were just kind of off here to the side. So the stitches here, I wanted to show you, I've got white on the back and black on the front. And I didn't have very much lace left, so I just put like a little teeny piece there. And I haven't cleaned these up, but you kind of get the idea. This one was a bit tricky because, as you can see, it's quite thick. So if you're struggling with sewing thicker materials, go slow and be patient. Let the machine do the work. And as I said, use a needle that's intended for thicker materials. Some of these, of course, were easier to sew than others. And this is just copy paper background. This one is cardstock, but it's got quite a few layers to it. This is a ribbon I don't really know how to use. Every time I cut it or sew it, it just goes crazy. I think it's supposed to be a tassel because you can do that, but annoying. And then I also changed my thread to red for a couple of them. Blue, you can't really see that one very well. Blue. This one I forgot to do. A couple of them I forgot to do. Yeah, they must have been hiding under my sewing machine. Blue again. So you get the idea. And there's a couple of different ways you can finish these. And by finish, I mean hide the thread. So I'm going to just pick one that's a little bit, maybe a little bit easier to see. Here, let's pick this one. So when you've got the tails like this, you've got a couple of different options. Sometimes what I do, especially if I'm being particularly fussy, I'll go in with my weeding tool. A needle would also work just as well. And you basically find the loop on the back and then just pull it through. And then what you can do here is tie a knot just to make sure the threads stay in place. Or I've also used washi tape on the back. And it's a great way to use washi tape that, you know, you may not love. But you need to make sure that or masking tape even. Just Scotch tape, any kind of tape really. Just to tack the ends down. But I find just pulling the ends back through and tying a knot is fine. And then you can just trim the tails. Wow. And there you go. It's pretty neat. So that's an option. When it comes to, let's pick one that's got ribbon. When it comes to these ones, I don't tend to be quite as fussy because I feel like the fabric is helping to keep things in place. But again, if you wanted to, you just go in and find the tail, pull it back through. And because I'm going to put something on the back of this, I'm not as worried about the stitches coming undone, where I would be maybe a little bit more worried with something that's just paper. I'm trying to find one that's just paper. Okay, here. So with this one, I'm going to use this as a pocket, and I didn't do any back stitching on it. So for this one, I would probably pull both the tails through and just make sure it's good and secure. For this one, I would probably just use washi tape, honestly. And so there you go. Something else I wanted to show you before I leave you today is if you're someone who doesn't have a Cricut and, you know, you don't have the luxury of this, you can upcycle or recycle pieces of cardboard, which is what I've done here. These are very old. And they've held up just fine. I've also used cereal box, and I think with this one I just cut a shape and wrapped all of my stuff. And what I did here is I used 2 layers of cereal box just to make it good and solid. Clearly I didn't glue that side very well, but it's an option, and I like that you can even put little pieces of fabric on this. So it doesn't just have to be ribbon. It can be fabric. Back when I had a different way I was storing all my ribbon, I just used a piece of cardboard. So don't feel like you need to go out and buy specific little inserts or, you know, spend a lot of money to get yourself organized, she says, as she makes sure that you're trying to ignore the bin of things on the side. Yeah, and as for the lace idea, depending on where you live, I'm sure you could make trips to a paint store or Home Depot or Lowe's or, I mean, Kent if you're in Canada. Any of the places that are going to sell paint are going to have these. And I'm sure if you grab, you know, a few at a time, they'd be fine with it. I just wanted a whole bunch of these all at once, and so I opted to buy these from Amazon. I can put the link in the description box down below. So yeah, get resourceful and, you know, keep yourself organized, get your trims and ribbons all together. And as always, thanks for coming to hang out with me, and I will see you next video. Bye for now.